What's up, everyone? How's it going? Thanks for listening to the Whatcast. Mike, I'm stoked to talk about this tonight. You asked me if I had heard of this, and I sent you a website I've had open on my phone for like 5 or 6 months. When I went to take notes, I had actually already started.
Yeah, I swear to God, it was something we had covered in the past, but maybe it was just something we mentioned in passing.
I don't think we have. When I came across it, it was new to me. I really don't think we've covered it.
Well, sweet. I'm glad that we haven't, because otherwise it's just going to be an updated rehash of something we've covered close to 10 years ago, probably.
I bet we've done that like 20 times and don't even know
Probably. I mean, it's very likely, and we haven't been called out on it. So if you guys come across something that we've covered before and we act like we haven't covered it before, please call us out on it so we know.
Just present it as new.
Yeah. Call us out. Tell us we're phonies and throw eggs at us.
Please don't. We've been getting a lot of that lately.
Rotten tomatoes and cabbage. Boo! Boo! Yeah. Sorry, guys. Anyway. Do you guys... Yeah. Anyway. Dark Watchers of California.
Yeah, this is something that I said, I came across before. The Santa Lucia Mountains is an area that spans from San Luis Obispo, which I got a funny story I'll tell you off air about, Mike, all the way to Monterey, and this is in California. And that's a long fucking distance. It's 142 miles of mountains, cliffs, and peaks, all the lovely things that mountain ranges have to offer. But these are no normal mountains, or else we wouldn't be talking about them.
Oh, no?
That's casting west when we go over our favorite geographical locations.
Yeah, be on the lookout for that. There's some zingers in there, let me tell you what.
There's some places in Wisconsin that are stunning.
And you guys won't believe this, but there's a state in our country that's shaped like a dick.
And that's Mike's favorite.
That's definitely my favorite.
Well, these mountains are said to be the home to the Dark Watchers. I know.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, that sounds so cool. It's not as cool. I don't know how much cooler I'd want it to be.
Don't say it's not so cool. It's so fucking cool. They're Dark Watchers, goddammit.
Right. I just kind of, in my mind, I immediately pictured some superhero that's in all black clothing. But these are pretty cool.
Yeah, just hanging out on the Hollywood sign.
Right.
Dark Watcher.
Exactly. I thought it would. That's just because of my depiction in my mind about them. But these Dark Watchers, I don't know. I came across a lot of different things. They say they've been talked about since the time of the Native Americans.
Phony.
Yeah,
that's fake news, Mateo.
Right. I found one source that said that the Chumash people, the natives of the area, told stories about Dark Watchers, the people who were supposed to have talked about them. But after that, this story broke, people looked into it, and there's no such tales that appear in their mythology at all. But the early Spanish settlers wrote about them plenty. They were such a common occurrence that they gave them a name, the same one that they have today. They called them, Los Vigilantes Oscuros.
Isn't it Los Vigilantes Oscuros?
Probably. I'm not as fancy or sexy as you. I'm sorry.
It's all right. You've got a luxurious beard, and that's all that matters.
And that translates to the Dark Watchers. And they're described as being 10 foot tall, all black or shadow-like, humanoid-shaped beings only seen at twilight. And they're seen all throughout the mountains there, watching and observing travelers and hikers and the like. And they said they're only watching and observing. What do you think about that, Mike?
I like it. It's got a nice ominous feel to it. They don't interfere. It's like the Watcher from Marvel. They just watch. They observe. They don't interfere. They don't get involved. They just observe.
I was just praying that there was like a sighting to where someone approached one and it just screamed, "Ignore me."
And it had a big bulbous head.
That's my favorite observer.
Yeah. My name is Oatu. Leave me alone.
I was talking about Venture Bros one. I'm here to observe your normal activities. Ignore me!
Yes.
But the people that live there, they know about the Dark Watchers. A lot of people have observed them. It's kind of like it's lore and mythology there, but there's a lot of people who claim to have seen them themselves. It's not so much as lore as something that kind of happens.
Yeah, it's it does seem to be more a thing like urban legend now than I there's still modern sightings. Like most of the modern sightings, there were the early sightings from the Spanish explorers, but the modern sightings didn't even they didn't start reoccurring again until the 1930s. So it's weird. Like, where did they go between the two time periods? Like, why weren't they being observed or reported during that time?
Right. What is a strange thing to have reoccur?
Yeah. Like, did they go away and come back, or was it just something that people were like, oh, that's just like a natural thing that's going on? I don't know. But like you said, they seem to just be standing there. There's not reports of them like moving or walking or doing anything other than standing stationary. And according to the reports, when someone gets close to them, they just disappear.
Right.
Just suddenly disappear. And that's that.
I've heard that people witnessing them disappear even from afar. It's just when you notice them long enough, from what I've read.
And it's weird that they range from human size to like 10, 15 feet tall.
Right.
And a lot of the reports say that they have the flowing coats or capes and hats with wide brims.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa, that takes a really weird and familiar turn.
Right. And some witnesses have even reported that they have what appear to be sticks or a staff in their hand.
What? These are like the non-corporeal embodiment of like wizards or something.
Or is it mountainous hat men, shadow people?
Yeah. They are described as shadow-like. Maybe they mean not so solid.
And well, all the witnesses, they all say that it looks more to, when they're looking at it, it's just like a silhouette or a shadow. There's no one who's been able to make out any distinct features other than the silhouette. And again, they don't ever move. They just sit there or stand there and watch and then disappear. There's some people that think they've got information, or I shouldn't say information, people that have theories on what these things are, or what they're doing. One of the mundane theories is that it's this group of migratory people who stay away from modern travelers but watch them as they're traveling along the mountains. That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. There's not really any evidence to back it up, but that's just what some debunkers are alluding to. But of course, because these things are so I don't even know how you'd put it, and I guess they seem to be like phantoms or have some sort of paranormal quality to them. But there's theories that say that these are spirits of the mountains, and they're there to help travelers that wander off the paths. And there's some people that claim that when they've encountered the Watchers, they've been given increased hearing or eyesight to help lead them out of trouble or get them back on the path.
No way. That's fucking way cool. A spirit granting you superpowers.
Yeah, but it's not like it's not like it comes up and touches them. It's like they're lost and they witness the Dark Watcher on the mountain, in the distance or whatever, and obviously you can't approach them, but once they see it, then they become, they get the increased hearing and increased eyesight so that they can find their way back to the path.
That's crazy. I've heard stories of things guiding people, but not actually heightening their senses to help them.
Yeah, and it's weird because they remain silent through the whole thing. Like they don't even like make a psychic connection or anything like that. It's just you see them, they know you're in trouble, and boom, all of a sudden you've got the abilities needed to find your way back home.
Wow, gives you the eye of the tiger.
Yeah, pretty much. And the myth goes, or the legend goes, that the Watchers are more likely to become visible to travelers that only have simple possessions like walking sticks, or that are wearing like hats to shade them, or basically nothing technological, just the basics. But that kind of makes me think about one of the scientific theories about this, because it's saying that they're visible only to travelers with walking sticks and hats, and one of the frequent sightings of these things say that they are wearing hats and holding walking sticks.
Huh.
But there's a phenomenon called Brockenspector. Basically, it means like mountain specter. And what it is the magnified shadow of an observer that's cast on a type of cloud or fog that is on the other side of the observer when there's a strong light source behind that person. If the cloud itself, and there's no indication here that I've seen anyway that these things have any halos, but and sometimes when this phenomenon occurs, there'll be these like rainbow colored halos around them that are called a glory. And it comes from when the cloud itself consists of water droplets and the light gets backscattered and creates this rainbow. But the phenomenon without the halo still produces these large shadows that get cast on the mist, essentially. And the sightings of these Dark Watchers typically happen late afternoon and into sunset, when the sun would be coming down behind the observer, because we're on the West Coast now. So the sun would be behind the observer, casting the light onto their back, and then their shadow would be cast on the mist that may be on the mountain higher up.
Right. I was going to ask you, was your looking into this and the stuff you found consistent with them appearing around twilight? I mean, at least a certain time.
Yeah, it's typically late afternoon and into the sunset hours. So, I mean, that right there alone is pretty consistent with the all basically it's everything you would need to create this phenomenon. The only thing that I question about this explanation is the fact that the observers always say that the Watchers stay completely still. And even when they start to approach them, they stay still and then disappear. And if it's the shadow of the observer that they're witnessing as they're moving towards it, the shadow would also be moving, at least with the swaying of your arms and legs. Like it might appear to remain in the same position, but there'd at least be the movement. As you're moving, you would see your shadow reflecting and moving in a similar fashion. And then as you move further from the light, the shadow would dissipate and eventually disappear. But that's not reported. It's that what's reported is that these things stay still.
Yeah, and what I came across was they stay absolutely still, noticeably still.
Yeah, and that's what makes it creepy. Because even if we go back to the shadow man or shadow person and hat man thing, which I think, if we are going to say that hat man exists, why does hat man have to only exist in your bedroom at night? Why can't hat man exist on the mountains? I don't see any reason why not. Maybe he likes to hike.
That's so strange. That's so strange, though. Maybe that's where they gather. That maybe that's where they live. They go out into the world from mountains. Because aren't Hatman reported as being still when they're seen as well?
Think always, because aren't they? A lot of times they're observed creeping into the room.
See, from what I understand, most of the time people wake up and it's in their room. It's in the corner or something like that.
Yeah, or coming out, or coming across the threshold into their room, or looming over their bed, or showing those creepy crooked hat man teeth.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's no evidence of teeth on these things, so I cannot definitively say that this is a hat man sighting or if this is something else entirely. But as with all things, I think that there's a connection here with other phenomenon. And interestingly, I think there might be a fairy connection here with I'm sure most of us that are present and listening to this are familiar with the author John Steinbeck. If you're not, I highly recommend seeing who he is and checking out a thing or two about him. But that's neither here nor there. It may not be your taste. I don't know. He's written some stuff that I fucking love, and he's also written some stuff that I was forced to read in high school that I will never pick up again. I don't want to defame anything, so I will not name names, but, Anyway, John Steinbeck, famous author, but he had a short story called Flight, and he drew inspiration from his mother's beliefs on the Dark Watchers. And in the book, there's a young man who is warned by his mother to stay safe from the Dark Watchers. But John Steinbeck's mother used to warn him to stay safe from the Dark Watchers. And she was a firm believer that the Watchers were real. And she was not just some crazy lady who believed in mountain magic and shit like that, but she was actually a school teacher, but she believed that these things were real, and her belief in it was so strong that she would leave on her way to school. She would leave fruits and nuts in the area where the Watchers were known to be spotted. It was an area called Mule Deer Canyon, and she would leave these offerings, and she would claim that on her way back, in the exact same place that she would leave this food, that there would be flowers left in their place, which is something that you see in fairy lore, where if you leave an offering for the fairies, a lot of times the fairies will give something in return. Oddly enough, it's also something that's repeated in a lot of Bigfoot encounters, where there's Bigfoot coming on the property. People will leave Bigfoot some sort of offering, and in turn, Bigfoot will give them something back, whether it be flowers or a pretty rock or something like that. But so it's I hate to keep repeating it, but it's all related, man. It's all the same fucking shit, just taking different forms, but it's all
doing the same thing.
Yeah, it's all acting the same way, and these things, who knows, this could be part of the missing 411 thing. These are watchers. They're just waiting for the right candidate, and they find them, they lure them in, and whoosh, gone.
Right. What if they're recruiting them? Traveler, it is your turn to meet the Dark Watcher. And these people have like nothing in their life. They're like, fuck it.
Yeah, it's just some vagrant wandering through the forest. He's getting ready to rob some poor tourists, and all of a sudden the Dark Watcher creeps up to him. You will not harm these people. You will join our brotherhood. You will become a Dark Watcher.
Yeah.
And then he's like, what? No. And then it like reaches into his skull, and then slowly from the point where his hand touches his face, just blackness envelops him, and he just becomes a silhouette that's doomed to roam the rocky wilderness of the mountains.
Yeah. This is your post, new Watcher. Do not leave from here.
Yeah, he's got like a 3-mile radius that he can wander in.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah. The Dark Watcher.
Don't rob people on mountain trails, you dicks. You're gonna get turned into.
Yeah. You'll get, your face will get skull fucked, and then you'll turn into a Dark Watcher, but skull fucked with a hand, not with something else. It'll be a Dark Watcher hand. It'll penetrate your face, and Dark Watcher eyes you.
The corruption spawns from the penetration point.
Yeah, it's true though.
Yeah, John Steinbeck's book came out in 1938, but I found some information. His son, Thomas Steinbeck, who grew up to confirm his dad's claims of his mother's or his grandmother's belief in the ghostly giants that stalk the mountains, and he went on to write a book in search of the Dark Watchers, along with an artist named Ben Brode. And I think I just found a PDF of the book, so I'll include that in the show notes so you can check it out. But he too mentions that how his mother would leave offerings to the Dark Watchers, which is it's a very sweet approach to some strange phenomenon that's there. What do you think about that? What do you think about living near a phenomenon that's been reported since the Spanish fucking settlers, that's helpful, that's nice, like not something that she doesn't have to fear? That'd be fucking kind of cool.
Well, I with the fairies and the way that fairy lore kind of goes, if you make an offering to the fairies, like let's say we live in regardless of your beliefs in reality, let's say that we all live in a world where fairies or nature spirits exist definitively, and we all know they exist. I could go outside right now and I could start leaving offerings, and conceivably these offerings, if left with the intent for these beings, could entice them to enter my property. And if I continue to leave offerings and we start to develop a relationship in that way, they would then protect my property. But if I were to move away or stop leaving the offerings, then they would become a nuisance to me or whoever lived here at the time. We were talking about this a few shows ago.
That's funny. You say it like that. It kind of, there's another link, what if somebody does that? They leave offerings. Somebody, it could be anywhere, but let's just say it's somebody near these mountains. They leave offerings. These things enter their house. They move away and stop making offerings. Somebody else moves in who knows nothing about it, and they start experiencing strange and spooky things.
Yeah, and they would assume that they moved into a haunted house, and it's not haunted in the way they think. Like, it's not a dead spirit that's there. It's some sort of other being, whether you want to call it a spirit or a fairy or whatever. That's what's going on, and now you have to deal with it, and unfortunately you've got nothing to do with that, but you've got a few options in that case. You can start to leave offerings, and try to see if that helps, or you could try to get a blessing done, which might chase it away, or it might piss it off more. And then I really think that's the deal with hauntings and shit, man. Like, you start fucking with it, like you bring in a paranormal investigator who's not being respectful and is just kind of fucking tromping around trying to figure out what the fuck's going on. They're going to be pissed off. Or if you bring a priest in who's just like, oh, this is a fucking demon or a dead person who needs to be laid to rest, I'm going to just start doing blessings. They're going to be like, the fuck you are? That's not my shit. What are you doing? And, sometimes it works. Sometimes it annoys them to the point where they'll leave. Other times it just exacerbates the situation. How many times have we talked about stories with quote unquote ghosts or demonic possessed places where a priest comes in to bless the place or a psychic comes in to do some shit, and it just makes it worse? Like, I feel like that happens more often than not.
Right. More often than it helps, it seems.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wonder if, like, with these sorts of cases, especially with like hauntings and stuff, if people would treat it more like a restless fairy and left offerings and like try to talk to it while leaving the offerings and explain, this is, it's for you, we can live together. I wonder if that would make things calm down. Because in a lot of the stories about the fairies, they're not evil. They're not there to cause harm. In more than anything, they're just tricksters. And I think that they get a rise out of it, and maybe even like they're able to derive some energy from the reaction that they're able to get, which is why sometimes things turn a little more malevolent, because that elicits the greater reaction than, just smashing a cup on the floor or something. But if treated differently, like instead of treated like something that's unwelcome that you want gone, like if you try to placate it or make offerings to it and see how that goes, maybe things would go differently.
It still seems so dangerous. I mean, if there's such tricksters, I mean, you've done a lot more reading on them than I have. Do you think that they could be so tricky as to get tired of a type of offering and then get pissed off and start causing trouble until you give them something else? Or, I mean, how are you supposed to fucking know?
Sure, it's a possibility. And that's the thing. They're really by nature they're really capricious spirits. So they're like, they change moods on a whim. And it could be something as simple as you change an ingredient in the cake that you made them, and they're like, fuck that ingredient. That ingredient sucks. Now I'm going to shit in your shoes. But also in that regard, it may be easy to mend fences so long as the offense isn't too great. Like if you start talking shit about them, then they're going to be like, you know what? Fuck you, buddy. You were cool, but now we got beefs. Can't handle the little prank here and there. A little fairy shit in your shoe. Come on.
Who doesn't love fairy shit in their shoe once in a while?
Who doesn't love fairy shit in their shoe? But I really think that's a lot of the cases here, and I think, and in a future Bigfoot is not Bigfoot episode, we will talk about Bigfoots being fairies, because they are, and we've already talked about aliens being fairies, and why not the Dark Watchers? The Dark Watchers can be fairies too.
Well, I mean, I tend to lean that way more than anything. I mean, one thing that instantly came to my mind when I was reading about this was the Gray Man of Ben McDouey. And in that case, it really did seem like, in that case, it did seem like some type of reflection off the sun, off the clouds, off the fog, blah, 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 that gives this weird shape that people observe. And the Watchers kind of sound like that too. But my thing is, my hang up with that is that, I mean, you remember being a kid playing with, well, maybe not you living in fucking Hoth, but playing it with a sprinkler in the summertime.
We do have summer here.
Sure
on
you
Hoth.
do. Sure you do.
I'll let you know.
But we've all been playing with the sprinkler to where we've gotten a rainbow to show up. And we go, oh, cool. That's a rainbow. You learned that.
Yeah, right.
That's what happens. And you can recreate that if the light's right anytime you fucking want. But both with Ben McDewey and these Dark Watchers, they have these big gaps. If it was such a natural phenomenon, it should be able to recreate at any time.
Well, I wouldn't say at any time, because in order for your body to, like, your body's not going to just cast a shadow on the mountain because of the sunset. But if the environmental conditions allow it, like if there's a low-lying cloud or a thick fog and you've got the sun behind you, then it's possible that the sun could create a shadow on the fog in front of you. And I think that's more what it is that it's if this is the case, mind you, that's why it's not always there, because you're not always going to have the right conditions.
Yeah, I definitely don't think it's an optical illusion with these Watchers at all. I think that...
Yeah, and there's some people that are like, oh, it's hallucinations because of high altitudes and oxygen deprivation. Fuck off. Like,
these are people that live there.
Yeah, that's silly. That's just fucking silly. Or that it's a figment of their imagination. Like, people are just like, oh, I'm just seeing fucking figures looking at me. And then there's some that are saying it's just pareidolia, and people are just seeing shadows among the trees or whatever, or the rocks, and thinking that it's taking the form of a person.
Then that shit would happen on all mountain ranges and shit.
Right. Yeah, I mean, really, the only explanation that really makes sense, like from a skeptical standpoint, is the Bracken Spectre.
Gesundheit.
From a supernatural, well, I don't want to say supernatural, but from a paranormal, whatever standpoint, maybe it's fairies.
Yeah, maybe the Dark Watcher, some type of fairy.
Yeah. Because, I mean, people, when you say the term fairy, people picture little fucking 6-inch humanoids with butterfly or dragonfly wings skipping around in little tiny outfits with glitter and glowing lights and all that shit. But fairies take on so many different forms throughout folklore. I mean, the different things that are considered fairies, like fucking trolls, goblins, elves, gnomes, dwarves, like that, those are all leprechauns, all fucking fairies. And you know, they're not all tiny. Fucking trolls are huge, and they're considered fairies.
Wow. Very interesting. Yeah, Bigfoot could goddamn well be a fairy.
Yeah, Bigfoot's a fucking troll, man.
A hairy troll.
Yeah, big ass hairy fucking troll. He just doesn't live under bridges. He lives in the goddamn woods and tromps around the mountains.
You don't need to pay a toll to him. He gets paid by wandering the wonderful nature of Northern America.
Yeah. Acorns are the only toll he needs. But it's just, to me, it's so fucking weird how often this shit just overlaps. And maybe you can say that the leaving of offerings and gifts being left in return in the same area as these things are being witnessed is coincidental. Maybe it's two separate things. Maybe there are fairies that are doing it.
Maybe it's crows.
Maybe it's crows. Maybe it's just a coincidence that a flower happened to be in the general area that was left. Maybe it got blown They're, who the fuck knows? And maybe these sightings are just shadows in the fog, but maybe not. What if it's not? What if it is fairies?
Yeah, I mean,
But the thing about that is people aren't reporting these things being little bastards. Like there's no fuckery being reported with these things. They're not tying people's shoelaces together or pushing them down mountains or anything like that. But then again, maybe if they're doing that shit, they're not going to reveal themselves. Maybe they're just going to fuck with you and push you down the mountain. And you're just going to be like, oh my God, I don't know, some unknown force just knocked me down and now I sprained my ankle and it sucks.
because you didn't leave me no cookies,
and then you get skull
motherfucker.
fucked. And that's what they do, man.
Cookies or skull fucked.
Yeah. I want your cookies. Give me your trail mix, motherfucker.
Yeah, it's just so cool. It's a cool story. I mean, when you hear about these people telling their accounts of seeing this thing, we're describing these things, not just one, multiple of these things. It's much like Mothman with the sandhill crane. It's a shadow off of this. Nope, not at all. That's not what they're saying at all.
Where the explanation is just more absurd than what the other possibility could be. Like,
Yeah.
you're telling me a man-sized fucking thing that flew away like a helicopter with glowing lights for eyeballs is a fucking crane that stands 3 feet off the ground? You can fuck all the way off, sir.
Yeah.
All the way.
That's one of my favorite parts about the Mothman story is that when they went in there trying to tell everybody that's what they saw, they got mad. I mean, they voiced loudly that we're not stupid. We know what a sandhill crane is, and that is absolutely not what we saw. It's also cool because...
And I've seen cranes fly, and honestly, watching a crane fly is kind of fucking surreal. Like, if it's right in front of you and you see it, because it almost looks like it's flying in slow motion. But one thing that they don't look like is that they're spinning like a fucking helicopter going straight up in the air.
That's right.
More than anything, they look like pterodactyls when they're flying. It just looks like a big goddamn... Like if someone said there was a pterodactyl and then like some ornithologist was like, actually, during this period of the year, this is a time when there's heavy traffic by the sandhill crane. I'd be like, all right, I believe that, because the sandhill crane looks like a goddamn fucking pterodactyl. I remember as a kid, before I ever knew what a crane was, I saw a crane fly overhead one time when I was outside, and I was like 100% convinced that it was a pterodactyl. 100%. Because they're so fucking big, and they've got these long ass beaks, and their legs are sticking out behind them, and they got a huge wingspan. Like, it looked like a goddamn fucking pterodactyl. And I went in, I'm like, wow, there's a pterodactyl. And I described it to her, and she's like, no, that's a crane. And I was so dejected, because I thought that fucking dinosaurs were still alive.
Let me have this bomb, please.
Yeah. Why can't you just tell me it's real? You ruined my dreams.
I want to live amongst monsters, Mom.
I do. I still do.
Oh,
I
yeah.
want monsters to be real. I just don't want them under my bed. Just stay out from under my bed, monsters.
I mean, more and more, I mean, like, we talk a lot about being skeptical, but more and more as time goes on, I'm jumping back into being more wondrous in my mind about these types of things. Is no matter what you say to counter these things, I wonder if we go talk to the people of this area who witnessed these Dark Watchers, if they would get offended if we said it was shadows bouncing off the fog or the clouds. It doesn't matter.
I'm sure some people would. I think that happens with anybody who witnesses something that they in their mind know to be absolutely real, and someone is coming to them saying, it's not real, you just don't understand what you saw, let me explain to you what you saw. And they're like, fuck you, dude, you weren't there, you don't know what I saw, you're just going based on what I can best describe, but that's not what I'm telling you, that's not what I saw. And I think that's the biggest thing about the hard-nosed skeptics, is that they're just so willing to discount what the witness is saying and just try to come up with an explanation that makes sense to them, not necessarily make sense to the witness themselves.
Right, and most of the time it's not. It's their explanation they're trying to prove.
Right. But also on on the other side of the coin, we've got the Nessie experiment that Joe Nickell did, which proves how flawed human perception is and how easy it is for humans to be tricked by just a mundane thing that they're witnessing.
Yep.
So, it's hard to say because our mind is so fucking flawed and our memory recall is also completely flawed. Like, we all have a bias towards our own experience, and our experience will often outweigh the reality of the memory itself.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can't even rely 100% on your memory of an event. Like, whenever I talk about especially the UFO sightings I had, like, I can only kind of explain the way that it made me feel. Like I can describe things the best way possible, but really it adds up to lights in the sky when you boil down it. But what I remember more than what I know that I can rely on is the fact that while I was witnessing it, it didn't seem normal to me. And that's what I think you can rely on more than like the descriptions. The descriptions will always be off because it's going to be based on memory. But I think the thing that you should really hone in on is that this person saw something that was not normal to them. It was not normal enough that they took note of it in their head, and while they were witnessing it, were thinking to themselves, this isn't something normal. This isn't something that I witness regularly. This is out of my regular frame of reference. And that's more important, I think, than the actual descriptions of things, because they're always going to be different. They're always going to be off.
Very interesting.
But even like hauntings too, you have, like, I've told my stories a million times on the show, but even me telling them, like, I've told these stories so many times, but even me telling them and knowing these stories, like, I still question, like, what exactly did I witness? Did it really go exactly the way that I remember it going?
Mm-hmm.
Or am I just kind of piecing it together because I knew something fucking weird happened and I only remember bits and pieces? So I'm just kind of fucking recalling as best I can. I don't know.
Or recalling parts of a movie.
Right. Well, yeah. And that's the other thing. Like, it's so easy for your memory to have these imprints on them that aren't even real. Like, how many times have you thought about something and you're trying to remember, like, did that happen to me, or was that a story that I heard, or a movie I saw, or you can't remember if somebody told you this, or if it's something you read, or if it's something you saw, or it's just so easy for your mind to be tricked and have false recollection.
Yeah, I was talking with my wife earlier today, before we started recording, about something, and I was retelling a story that happened, and who it happened to wasn't so relevant, but when at the end I said who it happened to, and my wife was like, no, that's not who it happened to. If you were interrogating me, I would have let you shoot me in the fucking mouth, because I was sure that's who it happened to.
Right.
Every detail of the story was correct, except this one fucking thing.
Yeah, I was literally just about to say how funny it is when you have when something, like, you've got a memory that you experienced with somebody else, and you're telling them you're telling your version of the memory, they're telling their version of the memory, and it's mostly the same, but there's like these things that are different, and you're like, no, that's not how it happened, and they're like, no, that's not how it happened, and who's right? You both have different recollections of the same fucking thing, and there's just these slightly different details, but who's the one that really has the right of it? And how do It's just so fucking weird.
It is weird. Our brains are weird
Yeah.
and wonderful.
Thank you for listening to the Whatcast. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, iTunes, and YouTube. Enjoy the podcast. Get yourself a Whatcast t-shirt or a sticker pack. Who was that dude on that one episode? Try the links in Homie's page. All this and more can be found at www.thewhatcasters.com. Thanks again for listening and have a great week.